The Washington Post has just reported that former President Trump's longtime accountant has started giving testimony to a New York grand jury that is investigating Trump's financial practices. This is the investigation that's reportedly looking at alleged tax fraud, alleged bank fraud, alleged insurance fraud by Trump and his company. This is the investigation that has already produced felony charges against Trump's business and the chief financial officer of his business. This is the investigation that has already obtained millions of pages of financial records related to Trump from his accounting firm, but now with his actual accountant responding to subpoenas and appearing before the grand jury. As the Washington Post puts it tonight, this grand jury is now hearing testimony, quote, from a man who could serve as a human roadmap to that data. His accountant, in other words, could serve as a human decoder to the millions of pages of financial documents that investigation has already obtained about Trump and his business. What could be worse for Trump than learning that his longtime accountant is testifying about him to the grand jury, a grand jury that has millions of pages of documents to back up that testimony? What could be worse for Trump? The only thing that could be worse is learning that his longtime banker is talking about him too. And indeed, the Washington Post was first to report tonight that Rosemary Vrablic, Trump's longtime banker at Deutsche Bank, who has handled hundreds of millions of dollars in facially inexplicable loans to Donald Trump through the years, through Deutsche Bank. The Post reports tonight that she is also talking to prosecutors now in the Trump case. His longtime accountant, his longtime banker, one of them appearing before the grand jury, one of them just speaking directly with prosecutors in that ongoing criminal investigation of Trump that has already resulted in felony charges against his business. And all of that news for Trump broke tonight before we got this new ruling later on this evening from a federal judge in Washington, D.C., ruling that, in fact, yes, Trump's tax returns must be handed over to the House Ways and Means Committee. This was a Trump-appointed federal judge who made this ruling, for what that's worth, but the law here appears to be kind of a black letter, no wiggle room situation. Trump will certainly appeal this ruling, and the judge's order that the tax returns have to be conveyed to the House, that ruling is on hold while the inevitable appeal goes ahead. But like I said, kind of a bad day already for individual one, right? With his longtime accountant and his longtime banker both involved in the criminal prosecution of the ongoing criminal prosecution and investigation of him and his company in New York. An adverse ruling against him in terms of handing over his tax returns to the Ways and Means Committee that's been investigating that along a number of different lines. It comes as his White House chief of staff is being referred to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution in conjunction with what we now know is a great guns investigation that is openly talking about Trump in relation to at least one serious federal felony charge that brings with it a 5-year prison term. Yeah, how was your Tuesday?